Buon pomeriggio a tutti.
Good afternoon, everybody. Before we start, I would like to personally thank the Rimini meeting for inviting me to introduce and chair this session. Special thanks to the speakers for accepting this invitation and be here with us. Because of sudden commitments, Guido Brambilla could not come. He is a magistrate at the court of Milan. We will soon see his talk, which is videotaped. Then we have Rosa Casella, director of the Modena jail and also of the Rimini jail. Patrizia Colombo, who is responsible for, who's project manager for the social cooperative, which is not for profit, and it's called Homo Faber, at the jail of Bassone in Como. Finally, Massimo Parisi, director of the jail of Milan-Bollate. Please allow me to thank especially all people who are here and at different levels work in the jail. Agents, magistrates, lawyers, directors of jails, volunteers and people who cooperate with them. Finally, also thanks to the convicts or former convicts who are here. They have been given as a reward a leave to come. We have very numerous people from the jail of Como supporting Patrizia, and then sitting in the first rows, the convicts, followed by Pope John the 23rd of Rimini, with an educating project. More than 300 convicts accepted and introduced, reintegrated. And then we have the group of convicts accompanied by the Padua Social Consortium. Towards the ends of the earth and of existence, the destiny has not left men alone. Testimonies from the peripheries, freedom behind the bars. This is the third of these meetings on testimonies during this week. We have to realize that this periphery is a world problem which is so dear to Pope Francis. Already in 2006, the meeting in Rimini started dealing with this issue, trying to focus on the aim and on the true contents of custody. There was an indult in 2006, and all over Italy, the only initiatives which have taken place are the not-for-profit ones, through the volunteers, the social cooperatives, and the associations. These activities encountered the support of responsible and competent people from the jail administration and were fruitful. So we need to give a big thanks to the people from the administration that were so accommodating. Except for just a few initiatives, a few not-for-profit initiatives, and a few people of goodwill present in the Italian jails, not very much has happened. We need to take action urgently and seriously, especially for the reception, the acceptance, and the reinsertion into the job market and the health issues. Otherwise, the situation will worsen. 70,000 convicts have been reduced to 50,000, but not doing anything in 7 square meters instead of 3, not being taken care of in 7 square meters instead of 3, doesn't change the situation so much. It is the substance which has to change. It's the content. You can even have 100 square meters per convict and nothing changes. Very little changes also for those convicts who just 1 minute before leaving are thought, especially by the surveillance magistrates, to be very dangerous people and animals to be kept in a cage. Being freed after so many years of custody without any path to follow is an irresponsible gesture and also illegal. Or more simply, it's a failure. It is as if 70–80% of patients going to hospital would get out dead. It is as if 70–80% of people going to school would not pass from one class to the other. No matter the numbers, it is the success rate which counts. With the current percentages, it is a scandal to think that it is the convict to be blamed. The fault is always the other's fault. Sorry if I'm really very honest and frank, but we can't lose time. Certainly these people have made mistakes, but they are people. The situations of violence which we are witnessing in the world, for example, the mass massacres which should not take place anymore, now even more present in the world than 60 or 70 years ago. And this speaks for itself. Before giving the floor to the speakers, let me remind you of what happened at the meeting in Rimini since 2006. 06, work inside jails with President Andreotti and Magistrate Pavarin. An attempt was made at focusing on the sense of the penalty. Those who wrote Article 27 of the Constitution had this well in mind for people that had made mistakes. 08. An exhibition on human experiences from the Italian and international jails. Just one episode during that week. An episode which is particularly important to me. It means a lot to me. An episode with children. Everybody was acting as a guide to this exhibition, even convicts. After day one, since many children were attending the exhibition, we asked ourselves, what shall we do? Thinking of the TV programs that are true war bulletins, that is, the news, with continuous quarreling, gossiping, and war bulletins, and considering that they are seen also by children, we thought that we would have a protected period of time for their visits. One in the morning and one in the afternoon. Rebecca, at the end of a visit, asked a convict, "Why didn't you think twice before shooting and killing?" He said, "Yes, you are right, Rebecca. I had to think twice." And immediately he went behind the scenes and wanted to go to the jail again. One of our people kicked him and said, "Go back to the exhibition." He had already been 17 years in jail, but indeed that 8-year-old girl asking him why he had spent 17 years within four walls without understanding anything and without really understanding those serving a life sentence. And then all the children asking, "Why are you hurting your family? Why have you stolen money from an old woman," etc. 09, bar, coffee shop, and patisserie with convicts making cakes. Convicts, prisoners, agents, lawyers, operators, all together to work and serve the others. An unforgettable experience. 2010, back as volunteers for 1 week. Visit to exhibitions and participation in various meetings, especially the one titled "Justice Will Be Made." Finally, the return match, football match between prisoners and the rest of the world. The first match was a draw. The second one, the return match, well, it was the rest of the world that unfortunately won. 2011, Convicts Day at the meeting in Rimini. Well, I got lost. Yes, the Convicts Day in the meeting of Rimini. Visit to various exhibitions and meetings. Then 2012, Vigilando Redimere, which is the penalty idea in the 21st century. There was a Brazilian magistrate at one of the meetings. He has for many years followed and supported one of the best experiences with APAC. Just two very short episodes that impressed me about two Brazilian magistrates I got to know in 2 trips I made to Brazil. The first one is the short man you see with the glasses, Joaquim Alves de Andrada, a criminal execution judge, an old magistrate who, after a long career in which he devoted his life to supporting these works, at the end of his speech to the Congress where I was invited, summarized in just one sentence what he has learned during his very long life as a magistrate. And I quote him, "Please remember, nobody goes to heaven without the recommendation of a poor person." Tomás de Aquino Regende, a magistrate who is an intersectoral expert, told me of an example of a convict that escaped from jail, from the van. He pretended that he was sick, so during transportation from the jail to the hospital, well, he tried to escape 12 times. At some point, he was sent to the circuit of APAC. It's a different circuit, jails with no agents and no weapons. Well, they thought he would escape, but this was not the case. The magistrate went to this jail. He asked for this convict. He was still there. They sat down together and spoke. And the magistrate told him, "You have to explain to me why here you could have escaped at any moment without any problem, and you have not escaped. Crying, he answered, you do not escape from love. And this is the sentence written in Portuguese on the wall of this jail in the Minas Gerais state. For the first time, he felt loved and most welcomed. He was not measured. His single-colored dresses or clothes were removed from him, and he was given street clothes. 2013, safer conditions during custody. During this meeting, even shy measures were discussed to change the prospects in our jails. Today, Wednesday, August 27th, 2014, the floor goes to Patrizia, Colombo.
Sono lieta per la grazia che...
I'm very pleased for the grace I am experiencing. Thanks very much to the meeting in Rimini for allowing me to tell about my story. My name is Patrizia Colombo. My life has become an experience of beauty, which renews day after day. Everything has to do with life if you look for the essential. For 30 years, I've worked in the world of school. I'm the director of an infant toddler center in a small village near Lecco. I started working in the jail of Como as Italian teacher 10 years ago. I wanted to earn a bit more money because I was involved in a bankruptcy which took away from me all material safety, the house, the money, and I was left with my husband, my 5 small children, and some friends. I would have never thought to have to do with convicts and jail. It is a world that I did not know and I was not interested in knowing. But life is always something else. What happens is different from what you expect. So my adventure in jail started, first with a social cooperative, then with another one, and finally, for the past 7 years, together with some friends from G Group, we founded the social cooperative, which is called Homo Faber, which has taken care of managing a small paradise in the Como jail. And this place is called the Centro Stampa. It's a place where you learn how to become graphic experts and also human beings. Over time, it's become a place where mankind can flourish again thanks to human encounter, thanks to a gaze that embraces you. It's a place where you have to do your job properly, because by doing your job properly, you're educated to spending time together. At the printing center, there are 20 people coming to work very orderly, very clean, with a desire to meet themselves and meet the others. I learned to look at them not as convicts, but as people, as human beings whom I love. I look at them this way, and they also look at me this way. I learned to love the others because I was loved myself. My morning starts very early with prayers, and then at the printing center we pray the Angelus before we start working. Also the non-Christians pray the Angelus. The prayer thus becomes a question of meaning as described in this letter, and I quote, you can make a mistake in life. The condition in which you find yourselves is a strength if it is accepted, and you build on mistakes, similarly to what God does. The mistake is a cornerstone which is discarded by the manufacturers, but you build on it. And a gaze can change all life. A gaze and every morning prayer can make you discover who you are and experience reality in a more creative and lively way. All this generates a flow. Therefore, you feel at the right place in the right moment, and the circumstances do not define you, but they become the possible certainty. Feeling Healing at the right place in the right moment. This statement strikes me very much because if you are aware of this, you realize that everything changes, you change, and reality makes living easier. Teaching them Italian with a method, correcting the drafts, seeing the finished product, finding time to read life, accepting the efforts of living, the disappointments or the joys for the family or the punishment, living with everyone and everybody in love is something which is not accidental. You don't feel alone. You are supported, understood, sometimes corrected or recalled. The team experiences this as a shared path. Those entering the printing center realize that there's something different, a different climate. The question is often, but are we in a jail? And from the climate to the gazes, and those eyes are preserved in your heart, and those who come once want to come back. Every time a convict is transferred, you feel a lack of someone, a pain, and very often I go and see them again. I very often wander through the jails. I'm part of them. Those who go out of jail look for us again. Those who are in a relationship don't leave you. We are still friends. Some of my men are present here. They were so struck by our company that they did not leave us at the end of custody. We help each other live the current circumstances, the joys, and together we have given stability to this being together. And we call our group I maltra insieme, those that are put together in the wrong way. This is not because we are weak, but because we are ready to accept anyone wishing to join us. This fraternity group is composed of former convicts, some of their family members, some parents from my school that got involved, some friends found throughout this path. There are people who even put away the silver when inviting former convicts to their homes. But little by little, fear turned into openness. It's not easy. Being together like this requires to be loyal, but there is awareness that the reason why you meet the others is worthwhile. And being together like this is nicer, it's more convincing, it's a grace. Everything takes awareness because I understand that nothing happens by chance, and this is a reason to grow. Once a month, usually on the second Saturday of the month, we have the community school, which is called Shared Reading, and it's guided by a great friend. This gesture is supported by a group of faithful friends. This is the strength of our being together inside and outside the jail. Judging life like this makes you happier and more joyful, and it's moving because every time we go out we experiment that this is useful to us. Every time we bring back more than what we can give, and this is a reason for astonishment and presence. For 3 months I've started the same experience of a community school also in the Bergamo jail, thanks to the invitation of one guy who was at the printing center. I share this with some friends, and I ensure to you that you become even more friends because it's an experience which allows you to work on yourself in a serious way, and the perception of doing something good is perceived by the letters that we receive. I started from bankruptcy, but now I'm completely fulfilled. My husband, my children, my friends are all involved in this experience to the point that I want to work today keeping everything united. To me, being a testimony, being a presence means that there in the jail, in the family, at school, in the fraternity group, in those that I meet, the director, the agents, the commissioner, the teachers, the parents, the children, the friends, I have to be real. That's why I'm ready to give my life. So you will well understand that the question is not jail. I was given this opportunity, others were given other opportunities, but the point is to desire that everything that happens in life is experienced with this fullness and this tension to loving. First of all, loving oneself and then those that you encounter. I always remember the flour and water which are needed and form bread. I cannot think of my life as flour and water, but as bread. This experience is my daily bread. Some of them have changed so much that they also change those that they meet. I'm not referring to convicts only, but also agents, operators, family members and friends coming to interviews. Every afternoon in the cell of two friends, there are 8 people reading the Gospel and Father Giussani's books. They recite the Rosary for the sick people or those in need. I think that this way of experiencing jail is a clear sign that the destiny is present. It's not like this for everybody. It depends on your freedom in both inside and outside. There is no obligation. There is just adhesion to the proposal. Destiny is revealing itself through gazes and encounters inside a humanity which is apparently destroyed and in jail, losing humanity but full of love and florid. Their pain, like everyone else's pain, is mysteriously fertile. I do realize that, as was the case for me with the humiliation of losing everything, to them the mistake, the sin, the fact, the custody were an occasion to see and understand certain things in life. And also understanding that a fact occurring 2,000 years ago but still present today and called Christ has taken us and changed us. My men are good. They want to give happiness and love to others. I love them, and mysteriously their eyes shine even in a brighter way. Their eyes look for you. Even those that are farther away get closer. People change, become more serene, with a more relaxed face. I'm grateful for all this. When you experience something like this, your house opens up and you're capable of educating those whom you have as guests, like children. Liu, a Chinese guy, left jail and was accepted at our home for almost 2 years. He was like a son for us. He is now married and father of 2 girls. He leads an Italian company in China. Edmondo lived 3 years with us in the family. He is here with us in the room. He's just married and is here today. We have opened our heart so much that we had in our home both my widow father-in-law and my mum, who had Alzheimer's disease. It was difficult, but we never objected this. We learned that it is not an abstract reasoning that changes you, but a true experience. And things are always like this. Every day is a challenge. Our friend Zef this year asked us to go to Albania for the baptism of his nephew. And because of esteem to my husband, this boy is called Fabio. And his sister, aged 11 years, wanted to come and study in Italy. She's here at the meeting with us. She will live at our home. Zef wrote to me, and I quote, 14 years ago when I left Albania, together with other 70 people looking for a better place. I didn't know I was going to end up in jail. In life, I met many beautiful and less beautiful things, but everything vanished the moment I had it. I lost everything: freedom, money, and happiness. At the printing center, I found Patrizia, Fabio, their families, Alessandro, Stefano. I look at them and understand that their way of living and their way of dealing with life is interesting to me. So something marvelous happened in myself, which is the encounter. The encounter with those faces makes me live and turns me into a man. Another friend wrote, "The jail is a place that blocks the image of yourself as if you were in front of a mirror. It's a place where you're only seen from the point of view of your offense. You are never called by name. You are a family name and a number. Your offense nails you to the cross. There's no alternative. But when charity approaches you with a human face, you cannot but move. You move with her because you are struck. And when somebody watches you like this and calls you by name, you understand that this is what you were waiting for. Understanding the others, you understand yourself and life. Today, the life in jail is nicer and more true thanks to the beauty we experience on a daily basis. I feel this presence which is changing me and surprises all those around me. Sometimes I'm asked, what is happening at the printing center? Those that work there are different people. You see it from the faces. And I answer, come and see. It's not that easy because the jail has rules for this, but already trying to understand what's happening in the printing center is a gesture which opens you up to the mystery, a need for change. It's like the smallpox of the heart. It is a contagion and leaves a mark. Yes, people ask, agents and family members become friends. They understand that your work is done well. They see people changing. I don't want to say that I'm good. I simply learned how to love people gratuitously. Our friends from the fraternity in Varese welcomed me and my husband the way we were. That's how I learned how to follow and obey. Following means being more true and loyal to the possibility of living that experience of good which our heart is looking for. Another guy writes, I was very displeased when I was told that I would be transferred to this jail. I didn't know of the very good surprise that the Lord had prepared for me. I was in the same cell with Alberto and Zef. Living with them, I felt fascinated by something I did not even know. It was beautiful because I could perceive that joy in my heart. And even if I did not understand, there was an uncontrollable desire in myself to understand, to follow what they had encountered and what had changed them so much and made them so happy in spite of their conditions. And then the interview to be admitted to the printing center. The printing center and the company are the surprise that God had prepared for me. They are the place where God is making myself known to me and where I found a sense in my life. Our way of being together dispels the feeling of being closed behind the bars. It makes me feel free and livens up the hope and certainty of my destiny. Thank you, Patrizia, for your patience and humanity. I'd like to thank God because she turned you into a tool to make me understand that there is a path for my salvation, for which it's worth living. What this guy wrote makes me say that an encounter is not accidental. You may meet what is true and nice every day without realizing this. You may not see, you may not listen, and this is also true for me, but in a friendship like this, the others may correct you and put you in the right position. Let me read another letter. Thank you, Sister Pat. This morning I woke up with great joy in my heart and the profound desire to better understand what is happening here every day. Asking Liu to follow me, I was a bit afraid because I don't want to make any mistakes. I only want to intensely live reality. I woke up before everybody else. I started with the prayers, then I prepared coffee. I drank it and put the coffee machine under the tap to cool it down. We have changed the taps. They are pressure taps, automatically managing the duration of the flow, and at that time there is a lot of pressure. Today when I put the coffee machine under the tap and I opened the lid, the pressure of the water was such that the coffee machine could not fill. The water was so violent that it would splash the wall. I observed this. I was still sleepy. I simply had to move the coffee machine 1 centimeter so that water could fill it. I thought, Jesus is like this water and we are the coffee machine. Jesus sends us gifts and signs of abundance continuously through the reality we live. He sends us our love with a lot of pressure, but if we're not in the right position, we cannot grasp it. If we are in the right position, He can calm our thirst, clean us and freshen us. It was the sign I was waiting for. This is going to be a special day because Jesus and our company put me in the right position. I remembered that for the first time this summer, I was invited to a holiday with Caron in Cervinia. It was many of us, but I felt alone. On the first day, while walking up a path, my desire was to reach those that was guiding the holiday. I was walking faster and faster. I wanted to tell him about me and my men. It was hard for me to get there, especially because all of them were in my heart. I reached Caron and I told him, and he embraced me. In that moment, I felt really grasped, and I remembered the embrace of Father Giussani that I received 30 years ago when I was sent to Todi to open an infant and toddler center. In that moment, everything became new. In that moment, I had an experience of freedom which was incredible. I was no longer alone. While observing the eyes of Caron, I saw the faces of all my men, my friends, my husband, my children, and I thought of the coffee machine. Reality changes when you change. The experience of freedom changes you. I understand that everything has to do with my life. The critical ability, the ability of judgment makes me look at those that I mean in a certain way and embrace them. The jail was an opportunity for me to grow and change. I'm called to be true there, similarly to what happens in school, in family, and in fraternity groups. Now I'm trying to put together something which puts all this together. I want a house that can become a place to hold convicts and former convicts. I understand it's urgent. It's urgently needed. Those that leave jail need a place like this where they can be educated through work, but they also need the stable presence of families wishing to give life, families accepting, loving, holding those who come in high esteem, educating in a way that everybody's freedom is adhesion and change. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and please pray for me, for my men, and for this future place that I would like to realize. Thank you.
Grazie Patrizia e a tutti gli amici di Patrizia e di...
Thanks very much, Patrizia. We'll now see things from the point of view of the director of 2 jails, one in Modena and one in Rimini. The floor to you.
Ringrazio per l'invito che mi è...
Thank you very much for your kind invitation. I hope that somehow a link develops between the jail in Rimini and the meeting in Rimini. The title of this meeting, I think, establishes a link between the jail and the periphery of the world. The jails, the most recent ones, are in the periphery of the urban centers, and this is also true for the jail in Rimini, which was built at the end of the 80s at the foot of a hill near the city. The choice of building a jail outside the city is a sign of the fact that we want to keep away what is different and what generates negative feelings like indifference, fear, refusal. In jail, we have put immigrants, substance addicts, poor people, unemployed people, those who are the losers. They've always been regarded as a danger or a threat to society, and they were put there and set aside. The jail has become a sort of social dump, a way of segregating those that the society doesn't want to take care of, those that Bauman calls the discarded lives. The jail as a dump was regarded by the Strasbourg court as non-humane and degrading, and Italy was several times condemned because of violation of Article 3 of the European Convention of the Human Rights. But the court condemnation and also the repeated appeals of President Napolitano did not provoke indignation at community level. Perhaps because people don't understand what it means if you live in 9 square meters, 3 of you, and have to forcibly share things with people of different social, cultural, and religious background. Maybe you cannot imagine what they can complain of because they have a free accommodation and almost a TV set in their cell. If they are in the jail, they've done something, so they have to pay for it. Custody subtracts man from family and working life with heavy consequences. They should not feel they should not feel abandoned. As the Strasbourg court says, a limitation of freedom is so severe that you cannot make it even worse by attitudes not required by the committed offence or by the reasons of justice. The penalty has to re-educate these people and has to be humane. These two aspects are considered together, and penal treatment inspired to criteria of humanity are the necessary prerequisites for re-education of the convicts. Re-education is not possible in overcrowded premises, usually poorly maintained because of lack of funds. How can you possibly re-educate and reintegrate these convicts if there is no job, and if they cannot work and are forced to doing nothing all the time? Human dignity is impaired, and this feeds the spiral of violence. If a convict has no dignity, then he or she may feel bad feelings against society and despises legality which is not observed with him. He will hardly be ready to become aware of his or her behavior. This worsens the situation even more, so you have to improve the custody conditions, invest in a more humane approach to convicts so that dignity is unchanged, especially in custody. Dignity is not acquired by merits and is not lost because of lack of merit. Less overcrowding is not enough to give dignity back to the convicts. It still happens that those entering jail are overwhelmed by desperation and decide to commit suicide or self-damaging acts. Recently, because of the efforts of everybody working in jail, these critical events have decreased in number. But we cannot lower the bar because the impact with the institutions, especially for those that go to jail for the first time, is a traumatic event to the convict and the family members. Feelings of abandonment often lead to losing hope, preventing discomfort so that they are not desperate and lose interest in life is not easy because every person has a background of marginalization, suffering, deprivation and failure, without considering the fact that many who come back to jail do so because they were not able to get out of a marginalized condition outside, and jail is a drift to them. Respecting and promoting the dignity of convicts are not in contrast with the need of security. Security is something that everybody has and should have, but it is built on inclusion and not on expulsion. And this was clearly shown also by the previous speaker. Repression systems trigger off the worst instincts of mankind: aggressiveness, rage, hatred, revenge. Cardinal Martini wrote that avoidable pain, even if legal, hardly improves human beings. So we need to avoid second offenses, and we have to avoid violating certain basic rights. I think that only if things change outside the jail can they change inside the jail. We need to look at the human and urban peripheries in a different way from the individualistic one. We should not escape from our neighbor. We need to establish a dialogue, understand and change this based on putting man at the center with his ability to choose. This is true for everybody. The convict has to build a better world, a better life than the one that led him to the crime. But the community has to give him a chance, even at the risk of him abusing of it. Thank you.
Grazie, dottoressa Rosa Alba Casella. Ora.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rosa Alba Casella. Now another director of a very important jail, Mr. Massimo Parisi, who's the director of the Milan-Bollate jail. He's the director of the most advanced jail in Italy in terms of treatment of the convicts. Of course, after the Padua one. Please, the floor to you.
No, è giusto scherzare. Allora, io intanto ringrazio il Milan.
First of all, I'd like to thank the meeting of Rimini for allowing me to give my testimony. I'd like to tell you about an experience of mine. Very often you speak about jail in two theoretical ways. There are, certain common elements like overcrowding, re-education, etc. But indeed, jails are people, faces. Somehow, I'd like to bring these to your attention. I started working in a jail administration with an extraordinary job. Well, my job is extraordinary by itself, and I started 21 years ago. I was very young. I wasn't even 25. I came from university with lots of theories, legal concepts and notions. But as soon as I got into the jail, I realized that even if relevant, even if important and significant, those notions were not decisive at all. What is decisive in a jail is human relationship. We have to do with people, and human relations are at the core of our work. I often say that the quality of a jail is measured not only because of the organization and organizing ability, not only by the projects, but by the contents and intensity of human relations. This is fundamental. This is something that struck me. I'm also referring to the human relations with the staff. I've always told the staff they shouldn't be afraid of their humanity. They should put it at the service of the institution to avoid being the prisoners of a role. If you are imprisoned by a role, you may run the risk of not performing this role in the proper way. From this point of view, over and above the organizational aspects, and recently clear directives were introduced to make the custody more humane. Well, in this job, I received a lot from the human side. I don't know whether I gave more or I received more. There are two main aspects I'd like to share with you. It's not the crime, it's not the offense that defines people. Probably this has also improved my ability to judge. Well, the person is much more complex than the offense. The offense is something which you find on your path. Sometimes there are people coming to jail, like journalists, asking what was the offense of this person. They're all interested in the offense. Instead, I think this is a limit. The second concept, in my experience, is that every one of us has resources, abilities, hidden assets that they don't know and that we have to take out. Educating means taking out resources that you're not aware of having. This is what I'm trying to do in Bollate, giving responsibility to people, making them active. They shouldn't be passive recipients of certain actions, which run the risk of being sterile. I said I wanted to talk about circumstances and facts, so let me give you some examples. The first one is what I call the standard convict. His name is Massimiliano. He is my age, more or less. When he was 8, he saw his parents taking heroin. He lived in that context, so inevitably he ended up in that circuit. He became a persistent offender. In many cases, he opposed the institutions. He reached the Bollate jail before I came, and he started a project where he was given trust. He was made responsible. He participated in the so-called transgression group, and a pact was signed with this group. Let me read what Massimiliano wrote, and I quote, "I've part of this group for 5 years. My pact was signed after some years of going to the group. It was not necessary to officially declare this, but it came on its own year after year. For the most part, these are the feelings and the sensations which led me to change my lifestyle. I remember a sentence by a friend who said, you grow and build something with the group, but you haven't stopped learning. Remember this. Build, grow, trust are very important words. Trusting means not escaping, building something together with the group. Now I'll try to describe how the pact is implemented in my personal feelings. Let's talk about the infinite. There's nothing which is endless. I have a feeling of something that lasts over time. We all know that we will end up we will finish or we will reach that final chapter. I have been faithful to this pact every day. Robberies and drugs gave me the same feeling, but everything was an illusion. Robbery after robbery, substance after substance. Going from one paradox to the other is so huge that I feel I'm a different person, but I'm not become a different person. I found new reasons, new motivations to go on, and I'm aware that sometimes it will be hard, but it will be worth. Massimiliano continued this and worked a lot with us. He cooperated a lot. We're trying to start a project for services when they leave the jail. We have to make agreements with the social services. We have to develop networks. We have to create citizenship rights within the jail. They have to have an identity document, an ID, and a driving license. Massimiliano was allowed to work outside and also started to act as a volunteer. Together with another group of convicts, we have 160 prisoners out of 1,140 who work outside. So together with another group of prisoners, they set up a volunteers association for volunteering outside. So they go to Caritas, they paint the schools, for example, together with the parents of the children attending that school. We believe that by changing this, you can change things. If prisoners go out and are useful, then you can change prejudices also in the community itself. This association is called Article 21, and it's not by chance, has a precise purpose. Actually, all these convicts already worked outside, so it was not a reason for them to go out. Now, this convict also participates in a journalist report and wrote an email to me and the vice director. Dear directors, yesterday, as you know, I participated in writing a journalist report on the volunteers' activities that we perform. It was a pleasure for me. I'm convinced that I would not have been able to live outside had I not started working outside when I was in jail. I feel I'm very much to the ground, and I don't want to believe that I have reached everything already. I'm still fragile, but I don't have to use these fragilities as justifications. What I'm writing to you seems to be banal, but maybe this means growing. I thank you very much, and I hope that my experience will be useful to you in supporting your approach, at least. This is a clear example from my point of view. There's another one which has different implications. Very often, as jail directors, we run the risk of seeing the world in pieces. We deal with convicts, the police forces deal with the offence, the magistrates with something else, without being integrated. Recently, we're working very hard at the victim of the offence. There is an episode that struck me very much. I'd like to tell you about it. We undertake several initiatives, so sometimes these initiatives are recorded by the media. A convict gave an interview on his path, as had happened many other times. He was his offense was killing someone. The mother of the victim wrote in a newspaper a letter where she said, "Why should I open the television, switch on the television and see the killer of my daughter in my kitchen?" I was struck by this. Sometimes we have a limited vision. We haven't done anything bad. We're doing our work. We're trying to give value to the treatment parts. So discussion started within the jail. Some people suggested to me that I should write to this newspaper. Others were saying, we are right, we're doing the right thing. Honestly, I did the only thing I felt I could do, so I called that mother. I thought it was useful, both institutionally and personally. It was very hard. Ideally, looking at her in the eyes was difficulty, but this gave further sense to what we're doing. You know, we spoke, everyone had their own position, and I don't want to go into the details, but I was moved by this. Of course, we have to be cautious when selecting some convicts for some interviews. It had happened already other times, but this time we had to reason about the victims, the casualties of offences. Projects were started on the pathway of convicts. The Demetra project, for example, what is it? We have almost 400 convicts that committed sexual offences and sexual harassment, especially on women.
Coltivano delle piantine, vengono messi in dei vasetti questi vasetti.
They cultivate plants. They're put into vases and they taken to initiatives in squares, etc. And those who want pay something for buying such a plant. And we then gave this money to the pink telephone, asking the convicts to realize that they have to have respect for the victim. For example, if there is indemnification following a sentence, the convicts have to open post accounts to pay for this. And this is something which redeems them in front of the community as well. And then you have the innocent victims, that is the family members of the convicts. I've been working in jails for many years and I see people lining up. We're trying to do many things in terms of the interview time, in terms of the so-called playrooms or green rooms. Think of kids who are 8 or 9 years of age and perhaps they have not gone to school because they went to jail to see their fathers. They start to be stigmatized and this turns into rage. We need to consider this all the time and pay great attention to this. But more than my words, I need to bring testimonies. We have also initiatives involving several universities. At the end of one of these visits, a convict wrote this email. Sorry for the time, but I needed to write this email, which is not formal at all. During the meeting at the jail on Saturday, I recalled things which were hidden in my soul. I entered into contact with the jail when I was 14. I remember humidity, long corridors, the turning of the key. I saw my father alone in one room with a wooden table. The guard closed the door, then came in again and took my father away. He felt guilty and needed my smiles, but I wanted to escape. This pain has always been with me. I'm sorry for writing this email, but I felt I needed this. During the workshops, I didn't withstand the question, have you got any relatives here? I was joyful to embrace my father when he would be allowed to see me. Thank you very much for reading this email. When I moved from Monza to Bollate, I received a sheet of paper from one person from the municipality of Monza with whom we cooperated in an excellent way. And this is taken from Dance with the Wolves. Among all visits in this life, the most important one is the one that leads to the human being. I hope I've been a director like this all these years, and I hope I've given testimony of this. Thank you.
Grazie al direttore Massimo Parisi. Ora.
Thanks to Director Massimo Parisi. Now we have Guido Brambilla, Magistrate of the Court of Milan. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I apologize for not being personally there with you because of personal commitments. Unfortunately, I had to stay in Milan. I'd like to thank the Rimini meeting for giving me this opportunity of being with you, at least with my heart, and communicate my experience as a magistrate to all of you. I'm a magistrate who deals with convicts and prisoners. Let's start from the title of the meeting this year, which generated the first reflection in me. What are the peripheries of existence, those that Pope Francis refers to in his apostolic exhortation? We immediately think of jails, hospitals, or geopolitical areas of social discomfort, but I think that the periphery of existence refers to each individual subject forced to living his fragility and being finite in solitude and lack of meaning. That's why we need the cry which dramatically comes out of the modern age. It's a cry for deep company to the individual, something accompanying the individual in the difficult path of existence. Destiny has not left man alone, says the meeting title this year. It's a presence, a well-known face. And this is documented by people who can embrace the others deep down to the deepest questions, helping the individual and the individuals be themselves in the fullness of their dignity in spite of problems and difficulties. Extreme experiences of freedom in spite of custody, in spite of poverty, of disease, are still possible. Is it possible to live freedom behind the bars in these conditions? It's not me, but experience which says yes. It's not a question of amnesty, indult, or else, but it's a question of loving people, loving each individual, not a generalized social category. So it's not a question of being simply good to convicts. This would be an ideological drift masking off other goals which have very little to do with the person. Let me say something about my job, which is the jail magistrate, which is usually not the subject of great interest by the media. When a person is condemned, is sentenced, then he or she goes to jail and starts meeting a number of people that are responsible for custody and re-education or reintegration of these people. They're followed by the jail police, by the director of the jail, by the jail magistrate, by educators, volunteers, physicians, psychologists, criminologists, teachers, etc. Also, the local authorities, the banks, the foundations, the enterprises, and the cooperatives take action. The interest is that of supporting the human being and allowing them to be reintegrated, also to reduce social costs and enhancing the human resources in the territory. Well, the jail magistrate is a sort of judge introduced with a reform in 75. The ordinary judges are asked to assess facts and offences, but after the sentence, the jail magistrate intervenes as a judge that works with rules but should use them in an interpersonal relationship with the convicts. A jail magistrate is to pay attention to the diversity of the convicts. You don't simply consider the offence that they have made, but a multiplicity of factors involving their existence. Great importance is attached to the family background of the prisoners, their economic conditions, their working conditions, their health status. I've always liked to define jail magistrates as judges working in a relationship, working and judging in equity, not following abstract criteria for judging, but adapting to the conditions of the human beings who are not carved in wood. What is the goal of my work as a jail magistrate? As Francesco Canaruti, a well-known jurist, said, the reintegration, the recovery of a prisoner changed during custody is the very goal of the criminal process. That is what really gives sense to the period of custody. The aim of a magistrate like myself is to ensure that the punishment is effective and that the convict is re-educated and reintegrated. But what does this mean? Article 27.3 of the Italian Constitution states that punishment cannot be inhumane, leading to re-education of the convicts. But no sentence, no law, no one has ever told us what re-education means. It's a strange word, actually. Our jail system is such that the convict has to undergo scientific observation of his or her personality. Individualized treatment must be provided for recovery and re-education purposes. As I said before, also outside people have to participate in this process, belonging to the associations, to civil society and other organizations. As I already said in an interview to Il Sussidiario, usually the change of convicts is a progress, is a path towards recovery from evil, from the offense, through tools like working in the jail, outside the jail, the bonus leaves, the alternative measures to custody, etc., should be a way to take convicts to review their behaviors and be socially reintegrated. All this is positive, certainly positive. And it's important for us to consider this. However, I was able to see in my experience that the true change, the true recovery, the true desire for conversion are events, are happenings which simply take place in the very moment that you look at someone. Even if you may need some time to understand what's happening in a new judgment or unexpected forgiveness. In my work, I met convicts who had followed all the different steps of re-education, left jail, but committed a second offense or were persistent offenders. I've seen people at the beginning of their jail path change in a minute and open themselves to a true identity, simply following a word or a gaze. The gaze must not freeze the person in a juridical or criminological way, but and should not reduce the person to his or her action or offense. If a person understands that his or her own identity is not defined by the offense made, then this person can open up to the authentic experience of sincere pain with hope for change. You can do anything for convicts, football matches, workshops, anything, music bands, but the I is most important, and the I for convicts is only to be found in the encounter with others. The others are the most difficult thing to rediscover. We don't know anymore who a presence is. You can do many nice and good things in an impersonal way, in a non-present way as professionals of the good, without being there. So convicts can become a pretext to put order in your conscience or reaffirm yourself and show to yourself that after all you are good. The presence of the other is not a tap on the shoulders, is not like saying I'm here for you, but it's something new which moves the I, which changes the I, trying to bring about a dramatic change. Also, a nice sunset has to be a presence, otherwise it's just got the matte or opaque consistency of a postcard. There are many events which take place without being planned or designed. One day, a lady, a middle-aged lady, came to me. She came to my door and I told her, "Sorry, who are you?" She looked at me a bit shy and said, "I'm a terrorist and I'm committed to homicides." She was serving a life sentence and she had already been in prison for 25 years. I was thinking of something else at that moment. I looked at her and told her, "I asked you who you are, what your name is." She said what her name was, and spontaneously I told her, "You know, Your name is more than what you have committed. At that point, she started crying, maybe for the first time after so many years in jail, and she started speaking of why she had been a terrorist. She wanted to understand the reasons why. This was possible in a dialogue between me and her until the moment she reached freedom. On that day, she asked me, what shall I do? I told her, follow reality. Following reality, following the flow of people who met her. One day she asked for an authorization to come to the meeting. Maybe she's there with you. Coming back from the meeting, she told me what I had seen is precisely what we tried to achieve with armed fight. More generally, when I go to a jail and talk to the convicts, I often realize that there are circumstances leading me to reflect about my life as well. First of all, I must say that I never found monsters there. We feel to be secure. That's why we regard them as monsters, also because of the effect of the media. Certainly, these people are disturbed. They have problems. They have very heavy backgrounds behind them. They're not irresponsible. They are fragile. They are humane. They are persons where evil and good often get confused in the mystery of their personalities that are bent by need and poverty, sometimes even by gratuitous ill-thinking. But yet, there's always a hope for being forgiven and rebirthing. Another thing I'm always impressed by is how convicts perceive time. We perceive time as something that contains our projects in relationship to our willingness of doing things. To convicts, time is waiting for something from outside, anything, either a leave or the fact that they can be made free at an earlier age, at an earlier stage, etc. They're waiting for liberation. Not only do they want to be freed from custody, but it's also liberation from their limits and fragility or frailty. They are waiting. Times to them means waiting. When I see a convict speaking with his wife or children, I see how intense those dialogues are. The words are never banal as they may be in a standard conversation. The conversation, the dialogue between them is very intense. And this intensity should be the right way with which we conceive time. Expecting something, recognizing that there is something which is coming from outside. Finally, the desire. I often hear convicts asking themselves why they have chosen to make an offense. They ask themselves, what was I looking for in an offense? Was it the wrong thing I was looking for, or the wrong method through which I tried to attain something? Sometimes people want a better life for themselves and their families. They want satisfaction. They have a desire for happiness in most cases. Now, to close, let me dedicate one final thought, though not less important, to the victims and the casualties of these offences. They're also at the periphery of the existence. Very often I hear people say, how do you judge the convicts? Don't you consider the victims that have suffered so much? The violent loss of a father, of a husband, of a wife, with all the sorrow that this implies. Well, putting the question in these terms is ideological and misleading. We are often hostile to words such as forgiving or changing or mercy. Very often we feel insecure and uncertain. Speaking of the victims means that you are interested in them. You try and bring consolation to those that are left alive. The first question you ask the victim is not to look for those who are guilty and condemn them. Well, this is understandable, but you do not complete the search. There is another urgent question. Why has this sorrow happened to me? Please give back to me my beloved. Human justice, both for the victims and the offenders, opens up our mind to the need of something which is beyond. Destiny should not leave man alone. There's a need for a company. We have to learn how to be mothers and fathers of each other in mercy, as Father Giussani told us. Thank you very much.
Ora, prima di lasciarci.
Now, before we finish with four photographs and one sentence, I'd like to thank everybody for the affection shown year after year. We really need that. The final sentence and the pictures come from the meeting of Pope Francis in the jail in July, the jail of Isernia. His words were, "Thank you very much for your warm welcome." When every 15 days I call a Buenos Aires jail where there are young people, we talk on the phone. Let me tell you something in confidence. When I meet one of you who's in jail, who's still in custody but moving towards reintegration, I honestly ask myself, why you and not me? This is what I feel, and thinking about this does good to me. The weaknesses that we have are the same, because why have you fallen and not me? This is a mystery to me, which makes me pray and get close to the convicts. Thank you, everybody.